on the microphone for you so that you can be heard, because that's important. We've heard that you would like to stay until 6 o'clock when our last service ends. From our point of view, this location isn't good because I think it would be very disruptive for the choir. We would be very happy for you to go to the front of each transept, so where the officers are there and the grey chairs there, with your banner, and remain there till 6 o'clock. But then we would ask you to leave at 6 o'clock, and would ask for your guarantee that you would leave at 6. And the other thing we would ask is that you are not joined by any more people wishing to protest. You've come as a group today. So we're saying yes. We would ask you to. Our first thing is we'd ask you to move from here and to take up position at the front of each of the transepts where you can clearly be seen and see the rest of the congregation, and you can have your banners there. You can remain there until 6 o'clock, and at 6 o'clock we would ask you to leave the cathedral. And I think it'd be very difficult for us if you weren't to leave, because we have the cathedral's due to close. It's been an extraordinarily stressful time for us and staff for us. There's a lot of fear about our financial situation, which, as you can see from the news, is a desperate situation. So I think, how does that sound?
We probably need to chat with each other again without you and the police.
That's fine.
That's fine. No,
I don't think it's going to take that long.
No, that's fine. I will go back in there. You can send someone just to signal to us when you've done the conversation.
Can I just clarify, where does the choir sit on this end?
So the choir are taken in the choir. We set in through here. We take readings are. We have 2 more services. We have choral readings for choral readings on Sunday. Although the choir is in the choir, the service is led from this space. So it's from the lectern for readings from the opening days, and the Eucharist at 5:30 is from this journal. So that's one for us as locations.
Okay, so this is the group conferring after the latest visitation from the people who run the services here. And as you just heard, they are suggesting that the group leave after evensong, but then relocate before evensong. So it's not what the group had in mind. They're having a chat about that at the moment. I'm going to just sit back here and just confer with some notes I've made. Okay, so what is the Christian Climate Action Group? A community of Christians supporting each other to take meaningful action in the face of imminent and catastrophic anthropogenic climate breakdown. We are inspired by Jesus and guided by the Holy Spirit. Since November 2018, we have worked closely with Extinction Rebellion and have become known as the Christians in XR. So I've done a few interviews with some of the rebels here, and I just wanted to go over a couple of things. The demands that were set out, in fact, in the press release. So the press release says here, 15 Christians, including members of the clergy, are holding a protest at St Paul's Cathedral today to ask the Church of England to divest from fossil fuels during 2021 to help tackle the climate crisis. Immediately after communion at the Eucharist service, they processed to the altar and faced the congregation holding banners with the words, "No faith in fossil fuels," and "Churches divest now." At the same time, around 15 people, oh, we don't know actually, they're outside the cathedral, I don't know how many there are, gathered on the steps of the cathedral with banners showing the same messages. So that is the background to this action today. It is a peaceful, as you can see, it's a peaceful, non-violent action by fellow Christians of this church, and it is aimed at getting the church to lead the way and even lead the government by making announcements before COP26 that would perhaps shame the government into actually doing something about carbon emissions. So the demands are quite simple. It's that the Church of England divest of its investments in fossil fuels. And let me just see if I can find them. Here we are. To announce immediately our intention to divest from all companies whose core business is the produce of fossil fuels. Number 2, to divest from all fossil fuel investments before 31st of December 2021 and commit to not invest in fossil fuel companies in the future. Number 3, to speak out urgently for immediate action to prevent irreversible climate impacts, to ensure a livable planet for all of God's creation, and to protect the poor and vulnerable. Those are the 3 demands that the group are making today. And they are just discussing at the moment whether to relocate or whether to even exit the cathedral at 6 o'clock with no guarantees of any of the 3 options, 3 demands. So I just wanted to go back to Antonio Guterres, the Secretary General of the UN. He has warned there is no time for delay and no room for excuses. This report, the IPCC report, must sound the death knell for coal and fossil fuels before they destroy our planet. If we combine forces now, we can avert climate catastrophe, but as the report makes clear, there is no time for delay and no room for excuses. So that was the Secretary General of the United Nations, and that is adding, I suppose, further fuel to this particular protest. There's a movement of police over here, as you can see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's about 12 police people here. So far, so good in terms of them not making moves to remove anybody. There's that policeman there taking photos. We thought that would happen anyway. So I just wanted to go through a couple of things here. I'm hoping that everybody can hear me out there who's listening. The facts, some of the facts. Now, the Church of England facts, I just want to get through. Here we are. Not divested. The following dioceses are still investing in fossil fuels: York, London, Winchester, Bath and Wells, Birmingham, Chelmsford, Chichester, Ely, Guildford, Hereford, Leicester, Lichfield, Lincoln, Norwich, Peterborough, Rochester, St Albans, Salisbury, Southwark, Southwell and Nottingham, Truro. They are still investing in fossil fuels. But the Church of England, some churches, in all 3, have divested and announced it. Oxford, Bristol and Sodor on Isle of Man have divested and announced it. So why on earth cannot the rest do that? I just don't know. That is part of the demand here. So At this time of climate and ecological emergency, we stand at a defining moment for the future of humanity. The most vulnerable and young people who have done least to cause this climate crisis. The landmark IPCC report of the 9th of August is unequivocal in its code red warning for humanity. It is beyond the time that the Church of England finds its voice and divests immediately and entirely from fossil fuels, and calls unequivocally on the UK government to act now to end the production, sale and use of fossil fuels. I think that makes the point quite simply. So here we are in St Paul's. It's now 1:30 in the afternoon. A proposal has been made to the group. It's a Christian Climate Action, and they're discussing it at the moment as a group. St Paul's Cathedral is an Anglican cathedral. It's the seat of the Bishop of London, whose name is Sarah Mullally. It's an A-grade building dating back to its dedication to St Paul in AD 604. The present building is a Baroque building, not to my taste. Personally, it's not by architect Sir Christopher Wren, constructed from 1675 to 1710. The funerals of Nelson, Wellington, Churchill and Margaret Thatcher were held here, as well as the Jubilee celebrations for Queen Victoria and the wedding of Charles and Diana, plus various birthdays for Queen Elizabeth II. It is an edifice of state as much as a church, and many warriors are commemorated here in rather bizarre classical statues where they suddenly assume the proportions and look of Greek gods. So one of the statues behind me actually includes a cannon from a ship, which were obviously used to blow people up. And when I see things like that in a church, I sometimes just wonder what kind of a church would have a cannon in it. Obviously there is a canon who runs the church, but not the physical cannon that kills people. Anyway, so I'm going to sign off for a while again, and we'll come back when we have more developments here at St Paul's Cathedral. Thanks very much for tuning in, and I hope to see you again later. Bye for now.
That we hit 400 parts per billion in 2015. One scientist said you can't look at 421. You have to look at the annual average. Those are the numbers that were important. So the annual average was not 421 in 2020, it was 416. Okay? That was the annual average in parts per billion, and 1.5 degrees happens at 430 parts per million. Good. When is this going to happen? We're going to do this again, slowly. Watch very carefully. There's 400 parts per million in 2015. There's 416 parts per million in 2020. That means it is increasing 3.2 parts per million per year. Regardless of what we're doing or attempting to do, it's increasing at that level. So let's do the math. In 2021, it's going to reach 419 parts per million. In 2022, it's going to reach 422 parts per million. In 2023, it's going to reach 425 parts per million. In 2024, 428 parts per million. And in 2025, 432. we will hit 430 parts per million right here. And ladies and gentlemen, that is 3 years from now. That is way earlier than we thought, much earlier than we anticipated. Which means if we hit 430 parts per million, we will hit 1.5 degrees, and there is almost nothing we can do to stop it after that. So let's finish our calculations. When are we going to get to 2 degrees of warming? When are we going to get to 3 degrees? Well, let's take a look. Here's what we established so far. The IPCC says we'll cross the threshold for 1.5 degrees at 4:30. That's late 2024, right? The IPCC says we'll cross the threshold for 2 degrees of warming at 450 parts per million, and that is 2030. That's way earlier than we thought. Way earlier than we thought. And the IPCC says we'll cross